Exclusive. Buhari humiliates Osinbajo, discuss Vice President's Social Safety Bill on Sadiya Farouq's objection. Welcome to the news and thank you for tuning in to listen. Please subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post our juicy news update. Please click on the notification bell. Document reviewed by People's Guard has revealed how the Humanitarian Affairs Minister thwarted the Vice President's long labor on a vital policy. Vice President Osinbajo was yet again mortified after President Muhammadu Buhari discarded his proposal on the National Social Investment Program (NSIP) Establishment Bill 2022 and adopted that of Sadiya Farouq, the humanitarian minister, making yet another affair that underscores the tribal influence of the second in command and the administration. Mr. Osinbajo, who had spent about 2 years working on his proposed bill with extensive deliberation with state governors and other technocrats on poverty alleviation, had his efforts thwarted after Ms. Farouq told the president that he had a different bill, according to senior administration officials and federal cabinet document obtained by People's Gazette. Mr. Osinbajo, who had spent about 2 years working on his proposed bill with extensive deliberation with state governors and other technocrats on poverty alleviation, had it therefore started after Ms. Farouq told the president she had a different bill, according to senior administration officials and federal cabinet document obtained by People's Gazette. Mr. Buhari promptly threw out Mr. Osinbajo's proposed bill, which had the backing of a National Economic Council, in favor of Ms. Farouq's document, the Gazette learned, which he then forwarded to the National Assembly last week for enactment. Several administration officials, including at least one minister, quickly deemed the president's action as unmistakable humiliation of Mr. Osinbajo and said that the entire affair was orchestrated to remind the vice president that he has no enviable role in the government. A desolate proposal. In June 2021, the president reiterated his commitment to lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty with the setup of a National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy (NPRGS) steering committee headed by the Vice President that promised a prudent and transparent project delivery. After deliberations by the committee, it was, among others, proposed that the NSIP be operated in a manner which the 36 states would own the process based on support from the federal government, document said. Governors expressed confidence in the work of Mr. Osinbajo's office, saying it mirrored the initial social investment framework that the Vice President started in 2016, according to one Southern governor familiar with the matter. But the proposal of Ms. Farouq sought to ensure the scheme is domiciled in and operated by her minister and a civil servant, which was widely rejected by members of the Federal Executive Council, who argued that it was contrary to that of Mr. Osinbajo and that such could deny the state their constitutional mandate. During the Executive Council meeting of July 27, 2022, members shredded critical sections of Mrs. Farouq's proposal on the sources of funds for the NSIP through budgetary allocation, 5% of recovered loot, and VAT from companies working for the federal government, among others, per document reviewed by the People's Gazette. The minister described Mrs. Farouq's work as a desolate proposal that was hardly put together in order to skim the vice president out of a legislation. She did it in a manner that showed of all of us that she wanted to continue reminding anyone that humanitarian affair is a tough, the minister said, under anonymity to avoid cabinet backlash. But instead, we are all being put on notice that the vice president role in this government is at best perfunctory. Documents showed that the council objected to another section of Ms. Farouq's proposal restricting Nigerians who are gainfully employed from benefiting from the poverty alleviation programs. They argued that some Nigerians, such as subsistence farmers and janitors, are still largely poor despite being gainfully employed. They also argued that should the purview of the programs be removed from Mr. Osinbajo-headed committee and moved to the Humanitarian Ministry, its objective would be easily scotched because they sought to circumvent state and local authorities. Still, the president accepted Mrs. Farouq's proposal to the discomfort of cabinet members, according to a September 2nd document seen by the Gazette. Femi Adesina, a spokesman for the president, and Laula Akande, a spokesman for the vice president, both declined the Gazette request for comment on the controversy. Mrs. Farouq did not return the request seeking comment. Desperate legacy. Whereas the internal rancor over the social safety bill cast a pall that could publicly mar its impact, the underlying desperation by Mr. Buhari in seeking codification of the policy could go largely unnoticed, an official said. As the administration winds down in less than 6 months, Mr. Buhari had become increasingly desperate to leave a program that could bolster his legacy as a compassionate leader who prioritized the plight of our nation's poor to the very end. People are still talking about how President Obasanjo helped clear crippling debt and brought economic stability that attracted many Nigerians in the diaspora back to the country, an official said. The president, by this bill, is hoping people will be talking about how he made it a law for school children to be regularly fed and the elderly be paid a monthly stipend. But officials said that the vice president should have been allowed to drive the legislation since the policy was his brainchild to begin with. Mr. Osinbajo instituted the social safety net programs in the early 2016 and remained his face until 2019 when they were removed from his office and handed over to Mrs. Farouq, who had been appointed to the cabinet earlier that year under a newly created Humanitarian Affairs Ministry. The programs include the N-Power, the Conditional Cash Transfer, the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, GEEP, JEEP, and the Homegrown School Feeding Program, HGSF, all targeted at relieving poverty by supporting vulnerable groups across the country. While he was administrating the programs, Mr. Osinbajo earned nationwide ridicule after being pictured having lunch with pupils in Ondo. Another photo of one-on-one chat with Utako market traders in Abuja during the inauguration of Trader Money also went viral on social media. But during his Independence Day speech in 2019, Mr. Buhari said the NSIP had been removed from the office of the Vice President to the newly created Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. Further controversies ensued after several aides to Mr. Osinbajo were dismissed shortly after the announcement, effectively crippling the Vice President's office. The Vice President has been going about representing the President at events ever since, an official said. He has not been able to implement any serious initiatives. All hunky-dory. Mr. Buhari's rejection of Mr. Osinbajo's proposed bill on social security mirrors similar embarrassment that he has endured since the administration was inaugurated in May 2015. In 2019, Mr. Osinbajo worked on a program to address the violent rampage of killer herdsmen that gripped the country when it peaked between 2016 and 2018. The National Livestock Transformation Plan, which also earned the backing of state governors by the way of NEC, was axed by the president following the objections of the then Chief of Staff, Abba Kyari. The president subsequently approved a botched arrangement that nonetheless cost the country about $12 billion in fraudulent payout to the administration cronies, the Gazette reported. And in 2019, Mr. Kyari, who passed on after contracting COVID-19 in 2020, took the amended Deep Offshore Act bill to Mr. Buhari, who was on a private visit to London, undermining the vice president. Wow. I am lost for words. Is this what the VP endures? I'm sure that man has a lot to tell us. I wish I would have the opportunity to interview him one day. Okay, on this note, we have come to the end of the news. We say thank you for tuning in to listen. Until I come your way next time, enjoy the rest of your day.